Just like PF58 part 1. So as we discussed that, we'll try to test that version part through Java. So I just maybe you can see my screen. So this is my repository where I just put the code of this Java. The examples I just told you, we can cover like 6-7 examples. Like we can just try to use those APIs and we'll call through Java, and then we'll just try to see like the results and how the things are working. So there are two types of method, right? We have one get and one post. So right now I'm just trying to hit the version part. I just want to know what is the ping federate version. So for that it's a get request, right? So basically I just want to send some I just want to send a call to ping federate server and get and want to get some information. So it's a get method, right? So I think you are aware, I think you know that part, right? What is get and what is post. So this is basically we are not sending some information to server, rather we are trying to extract something from server, right? That's why it's a get request. So now how we can just use this in our Java. So let's try to understand. I'll just go through this program and post this video also. You can just go and access this repository link of GitHub, and then you can just download this code and try run in your own environment, or maybe just try to write your own code and just test and see if there is anything any problem you see. Then you can compare from this code also. But yeah, there are many other way also you can write a code, but just we want to understand the basic functionality. So if I can just talk about the version part, it's a get request. That means there are a few important things. One, that I need an API, correct? Then I need an authentication, because here I'm just using the basic authentication. So I just need that I just need to pass the username password as a basic authentication. Then I need to see that how I can just use the header, like how I can add the headers, because there are a few headers which is required, what we have seen in our previous session, right? That we need those headers to be passed to call the PF admin APIs and get the information. So the header part. Then we need to see that how we can just read the response from the input stream, right? And then final, how we can print the result. So all those things, just have a look on this code. I have put all the comments also, like to just a better understanding. So if you can just watch this later, or if you can download this, you can able to understand in an easy way. And also post just reading this code. I'll quickly jump to the Eclipse, and then we'll try to run this code and just see the result, how it's giving the result, right? And also that this is just for testing purpose. So I have just bypassed few things in my code. One, I'm not getting the API URLs and authentication part from I'm not extracting this information from some another properties file. Rather what I'm doing, I have just I've defined the class and then I just put my code, and then I'm just trying to, so I just put everything in the same file, and then I'm trying to execute my code. But in the industry it's not working like that. You need to have some properties file where you can just define your API URL, the authentication part, and other things. And also we need to encrypt our credentials, right? If we are going with the basic authentication, in my code right now I'm simply just passing the username password directly, but in the industry it's not like that. You need to encrypt those values using some standard algorithm. So for again, you need to modify your code. Third thing, I am right now bypassing the SSL certificate validation in my code, but in the industry again it's not going to work like that. So this code is just for testing purpose, understanding purpose, but when you're writing in the industry, you need to just give importance to these parts also, right? How you're getting the values of API URLs other from the properties file, then just give encrypting the credentials part, and then just no need to bypass the certificate validation. You need to use the SSL certificate validation to just make your things secure in communication. Okay. So let's quickly jump and let's have a look on this. So this is the package. We have declared the COM PF admin version. Then we have imported SSL TLS classes for handling secure connections. We are bypassing, but yeah, if we need to use, we need to just import this. Then import buffered reader for reading text from an input stream, right? Then we have imported input stream reader for converting byte streams to the character streams. Then we have the imported HTTP URL connection for handling HTTP connections. Then we have imported URL for URL class for URL handling. Then we have like security cert X509 certificate. This is mainly for the handling certificates. Then we have imported base64 for encoding credentials. There are a few things which we are not doing, but yeah, these are the things we need to put in our code. Then define the public class that ping-fitted API version. Then, as I told, we need to define the API endpoint. So private static final string API underscore URL. We have defined our API of the version part. Then need to define the username password for the HTTP basic authentication. So right now I'm just passed directly, right? I just put username as administrator, and in the password I just need to give my password of the admin console, how I'm connecting. Right. So I'm not encrypting or encoding anything here, but yeah, in industry we need to go for that. Then just define the main method to execute the program. So define another try case for the error handling. So here I'm just bypassing the SSL certificate validation. Okay. So but yeah. So what I did here, like create an array of trust manager, then implemented a custom trust manager. Then I have defined that ignore the certificate chain, and then yeah, I'm not checking any client certificate here or server certificate. But in the industry, when you write a code, you need to check all those to do the SSL certificate validation. Right, then after this, like we have created an instance of, we have created get an instance of SSL context for TLS part, right? Then initialize the SSL context with the custom trust manager. Then set the default SSL socket factory and set the default host name viewer verifier to bypass host name checks. Okay. So these are things we haven't given importance for now, but yeah, while testing we can ignore and we can just use this. Then we need to define the URL, create a URL object with the API endpoint. So we have created a URL object with the API endpoint URL, and then open an HTTP connection to the URL. That's the HTTP URL connection. The connection equals to HTTP URL connection URL.open connection. This is just a way you can just open that HTTP connection to the URL. Then what is the method we are using here? Get, right? As I told you, we are trying to extract some information from the pingfed server. So just set the HTTP request method to get connection.set request method get, right? Then we need to add some headers. So there too, we can add set the accept header to request JSON response. So the accept application JSON. And another is XSRF header for the CSRF token. So we can define the header name and the value. Okay. So there are few things which you can see going to be repeated, right, in all our REST API calls. So if I can just talk about the GET request only, because there are two types of method, right? GET and POST. So if I'm just not if I'm not adding something to the server, in that case, I need to use the GET only. That means if I want to get the application list, if I want to get the data store list, if I want to get the authentication policy contract list. So I'm just trying to get all the information from pingfed server. So in this case, it's just like I need to use the GET method, and then I can just call in this, just the way I'm just doing in this code. I just need to update the API endpoints, and then I can test, because same thing I'm just repeating, right? Because I'm just opening a URL, right? I'm just defining the header, bypassing the SSL certificate validation, define the API URL and the authentication part, and then I'm just setting up the HTTP basic authentication, get the response code, and how we are doing in this code, right? In similar way, I just need to repeat in every code. Just I need to change the API endpoint and then test. But this is for the GET. When we go for the POST, that means, like, let's say I want to create a SAML connection. I want to create some scope. I want to create an auth client. I want to create a new authentication policy contract. I want to create a new data store. So when I'm just creating something, that means I'm adding something to the server. That is a POST method. So in that, I'll just show you how we can do. There are some changes because we need to pass those parameters in the JSON form. So I'll just show you in few examples. So I just take like 7-8 examples. In that, like, there are 3-4 are GET and 2 or 3 are maybe 3 or 4 are POST also. So in the POST example, I'll just show you how we can pass those things in the JSON form and then just submit to the server, so we can just see that whether that is getting created or not in the pingfed rate. Okay. Yeah, so this is the required headers we have added, and then just go for the setup HTTP basic authentication. So combine the username password, then encode the credentials to base 64. So just we encoded here and not doing the encrypting part. Then prefix with the basic for authorization header, and then set the authorization header with the encoded credentials. So connection.set request property authorization, auth header, right? That we did here. Okay, so these are just setting up the HTTP basic. Once it is done, then go for the get the response code. So basically when we are hitting, so what is the response code we are getting? The 200 or 301, 401, like that. So for that, just get the HTTP response code. So int response code equal to connection.get response code, and then print the response code, right? Whatever it's like 200 or whatever, right? After hitting that API. So we can just reading the response code also. Now the most important thing, like we just need to print the result and read the response from the input stream also. So for that, what we are doing? So first we are creating a buffer reader to read the input, right? That is buffer reader to read the input stream basically, right? So buffer reader in equals to new buffer reader, then new input stream reader connection dot get input stream. Then string to hold each line of the response. That is input line. We are putting string input line, right? Then just string builder we are using to accumulate response lines. So if we have multiple, right, the response is within maybe 10 lines like that. So trying to accumulate all those. Then read each line of the response by was putting in the while loop, right? Input line equals to in dot read line, and then yeah, if it is not equal to null, then just yeah, response dot append input line, append line to the string builder. So we first define the string builder to accumulate response line, then just reading line by line, right? Each line of the response. And then yeah, we are just closing the buffer reader. This is just to read the response from the input stream. So we need to just write this code, and this is common again for all your code, whether it's a post or get, right? And then we can just print the response. That is like yeah, system out println response to plus response to a string, then print the just accumulator response whatever we get, right? And then just find the cache part, right, for the error handling. If there is any error, you can catch in the exception and print the stack trace of the exception. This is just the basic code, right? The important thing here in this, like how we are just I'll say that if I can go to the top, yeah, these are part you can leave this. Yeah, important part here, like we can just define the username password in the API URL in the class, and then in the main method we need to define the SSL certificate validation, then create a URL object with the API endpoint, and then open that to the URL, then set the request method to get, set the required header, set up the HTTP basic authentication. You can get the response code and then read the response from the input stream and print that response, right? The accumulated response. These are the basic things for the get request, and in all the code you can see this is going to get repeated. You just need to update your API endpoint and then just read the response. You can just write in Eclipse or IntelliJ IDE or any other IDE tool and get those results, right? You can just use this in your like any Java compiler also online. Okay, so let quickly run this, and in the Eclipse, let me go to that Eclipse. So this code I have written here, right? The same thing whatever we see there. So this is, I just copied from that GitHub only, and let's quickly just run that. Yeah. Okay, so we get the response code as the get the response code that we have written in our code. So it's giving us 200, right? Get the response code, and then we are printing the final response, accumulated response, that is response 1, right? So that is a version 12.104. That's version what we have. So in the similar way, you can test whatever your get ping fed REST APIs for the get method. You just need to update the API endpoint and then just use this code and then write it. And also I just recommend just write in your own in your own logic, in your own way. But these are the things like which going to be same, right? That how we are going to read the input in response from the input stream, or the method part, or the maybe in the SSL certificate validation you can try to put that. I removed for now because we are just using for testing. But if you want, you can just try and just see that how you can put there to use the certificate for the just don't bypass, right? Just use that SSL certificate validation. So yeah, there are a few changes you can do in the code, and use any other language also. It's not required to just go through Java also. But yeah, this is one of the way. And okay, so this is good. And if you have any questions regards to this, maybe please put in the comment section, and just do the things in your own lab and just test, and let me know if you face any problem. And let's jump to the next section where we can just yeah, have a look on other examples also. Yeah, thank you.